India and Seychelles share close relationship. There has been high-level engagement. There are multiple pillars of this relationship, whether it's the connect between the defense or whether it is the connect when it comes to tourism as well. With me is the Foreign Minister of Seychelles to talk about the entire gamut of this relationship. So welcome to WION. And my first question to you is, you're here in Delhi, you held conversations with the Indian External Affairs Minister, Dr S Jaishankar. So what were the conversations like?
Look, I'm here, as you rightly say, at the invitation of the External Affairs Minister. It's an invitation that I should have accepted quite a while back, but I'm happy that it's finally happened. Seychelles and India have very strong, long-standing relations in various fields. India supports Seychelles in many areas, and I think it was good for us to sit down, the Minister and I, for us to sort of look at where we are, look at issues that may happen, there may be in our relations, try and find solutions for them, but more importantly, see how we can progress, take those relationships forward. So this is what we did.
And how to characterize this relationship, if you can sum up briefly where ties stand today?
I would say our relations are excellent. India has, over the years since our independence in 1976, been a solid, dependable partner. And we're very happy with the way things are. We sort of have similar views on many issues, and we share this emotion. So I'm glad, yes, in summary, it is an excellent relationship.
Development partnership has been a key pillar of this relationship, from buses to, of course, infrastructure projects. If you can talk about that, the Indian assistance in your country, and have you sought more such assistance for any infrastructure project in your country?
Yes, the relationship goes beyond that, actually. It's multifaceted. At the height of COVID, India helped us with vaccines, which helped us open up the country and saved our tourism industry and the economy of the country. But before that, and since then, there's a lot of cooperation in maritime sector, in defense. India has several military advisors in Seychelles. India supports us in our capacity building, scholarships not only in military but in other areas. But as you say, yes, in our transport sector, our public transport system is made up of Tata buses, and this continues. New areas of cooperation, apart from building on existing ones, is to look at other areas that India would be able to help us on. We have a program that started a few years ago, what we call the high impact community projects, where India supports us in financing projects in the districts and villages that have direct impact on the community, be they bridges, roads, and so on. This will continue, but also we've discussed possibility of India's support in social housing. So we need to discuss further and sort of agree on both in terms of number and other details associated with that.
The Indian Diaspora Connect, your president is Indian origin person, and this is widely celebrated here, I'm pretty sure in Seychelles as well. So if you can talk about the history and the role of the Indian diaspora in your country.
Look, the Indians were one of the first to arrive in these islands over 250 years ago. As you know, Seychelles, the islands were uninhabited until the French with African settlers and some Indians came there and settled. And since then, the Indian population, now the diaspora, has grown and are fully part of the Seychellois nation. We look at them as Seychellois, yes, if you want to push it further, of Indian origin. And the president himself is one of those. His grandparents came, I think, from Bihar. The Indian community in Seychelles play a vital role in the development of the country, in the economic activities that they do, and help with the growth of the economy.
You talked about the defense as one of the key aspects. You talked about certain Indian advisors as well. If you can talk about the defense pillar of this relationship, we have seen increasingly the Indian Navy ships also coming to your country. They're playing an important role in mapping the EEZ as well. If you can shed some light on that.
There's mapping of the EEZ. But beyond that, there are areas of direct interest to Seychelles. Seychelles, a small island, well, small country, made up of 115 islands, in an ocean that's 1.3 over million square kilometers. For us to be able to patrol this ocean that today is infested with drug trafficking, trafficking in arms, illegal fishing, is almost impossible. India has been consistently there by our side to help us patrol the ocean, basically to, in many cases, arresting ships that are coming in with drugs and so on. So this is a cooperation that we value. It's one area where the interests of India and those of Seychelles converge, and we're happy to collaborate with that. In addition to that, India has provided us with some patrol vessels, which we make a very good use of. And as I said earlier, all the support and training that they provide.
India has given you patrol vessels. India has given you Dorniers as well. Are you seeking more such defense assets as well to make sure that you are able to monitor the large oceanic state you have?
We will continue to cooperate together. We've discussed with the minister other areas that we can cooperate in. Maybe I will not go into detail at the moment. But I think what we've agreed is the commitment that I've had is India is ready to support Seychelles in whatever area it needs to support on. And the point that has been made to us is that India offers the support, never imposes on anybody. It's for Seychelles to accept or not. But so far there's nothing that is unpalatable, if unpalatable is the term. We're happy in areas that are of our national interest, in our national interest, to cooperate with India, and that will continue.
In 2015, we saw the coastal surveillance radar being given by India. How are they helping your country defend against concerns over, of course, illegal fishing and other such issues which we see in the Indian Ocean region?
It forms part of the whole package of monitoring that vast expanse of ocean that we have. So these radars are placed in strategic positions around our territory and helps us in the work that we need to do.
Essentially, if we talk about India's role as a country which held several summits this year, we had the Voice of the Global South Summit where you participated. We had the G20 Summit as well. How do you see India as the voice of the Global South? If you can talk about that.
Look, if we take the G20, I think India has provided sterling leadership to that group. I think it was clear that India was the champion of the South, and did make the point on several issues concerning the South. We're happy, and we congratulate India for finally, after all the talk over so many years, that the African Union is a member of the G20. So absolutely, we're confident that India is, well, as a developing country, is a champion of the causes, the concerns of the South. And that is why in Seychelles, when India asks us for support in international organizations, support on candidatures, we're comfortable to support because we know India is a friend.
Candidature for support, if you can talk about that, India's bid for the UNSC or?
No, in candidatures for India's request for us to support them in various candidatures, in various international organizations, be it the UN Security Council, be it in IMO and others. We're happy to support India.
African Union became member of the grouping, the G20 grouping, part of the African continent as well. How do you see the inclusion of the African Union at the high table? We know that Africa is keen that there is a seat at the high table, at the UNSC as well. What is your take on that as well?
Look, at the level of G20 or any institution, any body any group of countries, I think it's good that Africa can be its own advocate, be able to be there, make its own case. And with regards to the UN Security Council, we've advocated for years now that membership needs to be enlarged. The role of Africa, as it did some other countries, need to be recognized. We cannot continue on a mechanism, on a setup dating back after the Second World War. So absolutely, I think Africa has its role to play, and we're happy that countries like India are supporting us in this endeavor.
Do you see a greater divide between the global north and the global south? Because I'm asking this question because when the Ukraine conflict started, it was the global south that suffered, but when the UNSC discussions happened, it was not about the worries of the global south.
It is the case all the time, isn't it? We see that almost everywhere. And I think the problem we have, Seychelles as a small country, is maybe hypocrisy is too big a word. But you see a lot of the declarations that are made, supposedly in favor of the South, and in our case, in favor of the small island developing states. But then they end up being just conversations. And after that, when the lights goes off, everybody goes back to what they've been doing before.
I sense a disappointment when you say this from the people who are running the global institutions, whether it is the UNSC or other institutions. Do you think that the voice of the global south is somehow not being represented at the high table? And if yes, what can be done, sir?
It's not being represented, absolutely. But what can we do? We cannot, kick the doors open. We need to continue making our case. There's advocacy that we do ourselves, but then we look to friends, to other partners to help us make the international community understand that we need to have a voice. We need to be able to make our own case and defend our own case.
So you said you look at friends. Do you think that India can be that friend that can be the voice of the global south? Do you think so?
Without any doubt, without any doubt. Certainly Seychelles, we're comfortable that India has consistently been on the side of the developing South, and will continue to do so. We absolutely, answer to your question, short answer is yes, without any doubt.
Seychelles might be territorially small, but it is a large oceanic state. It's at the heart of the Indian Ocean, from where major trade routes pass. It has also seen increased geopolitical tensions. There are concerns over illegal fishing. How do you sense the security situation in the Indian Ocean, if you can talk about that?
Illegal fishing is a big problem. And also I alluded at the beginning of the interview about illegal arms trafficking. Drugs is a massive problem. And with drugs and arms trafficking poses problems. So that is why we have security arrangements with not only India but other countries in the region. For your information, we signed an agreement with the EU recently, whereby the EU mandate, Atalanta, in the Indian Ocean has been extended to include precisely arms trafficking, drugs trafficking. And Seychelles has offered itself, first country to do it, first itself as a possibility for us to receive these people that are arrested on the high seas, prosecute and imprison them. It's a tall order for a small country. It's very risky, but it is in our national interest to do it. There is no other way.
You talked about EU, but are you looking at any specific countries, for example, France, which sees itself as a resident power here in the Indian Ocean?
It's in every country that is able to assist. France is another partner in the region because they have a presence on the island of Réunion. So a lot of the patrolling that we do, a lot of the activities that we do are in collaboration with partners that have an interest in that ocean.
Any trilateral with India, France, Seychelles coming up? Because India has a very good relationship with France, it's working with France. You have a good relationship. Are you looking at something like that?
We do not foresee any sort of formal trilateral, as you call it, arrangement. We talk to everybody, and I'm sure everybody is talking to each other. but we find an arrangement where, our various interests converge and we work together.
So when it comes to India-Africa relationship, it has been growing. India has a historical relationship with Africa. How do you see India's role in the African development? And also there were plans of the India-Africa summit. There was conversation as well happening. What are you looking at when it comes to the India-Africa summit, which is expected to happen very soon?
With the India-Africa summit, unfortunately because of circumstances, I think the last one was in 2015.
Yes.
15, when it was due to, when the next one was due, then we had COVID. But now discussions are on for us to look at convening the summit sometime soon. I hope during the course of next year or the year after, and this time in Africa somewhere. Absolutely. I think with regards to India's position on the world stage, its interest and its support for the South countries in the South, I think it's good that this cooperation can continue. And the Africa-India Summit provides the forum for us to look at how we can cooperate together.
In the Indian Ocean, how do you see, engagement of other countries, for example, China, and how do you see your relationship with China?
With regards to our relationship with China, we have an excellent relationship with China. And I tell everybody, as far as India and China is concerned, it's not an either or. Both countries, we've been friends with traditionally since independence. That continues. The support that we get from India, China also supports us in other areas, primarily infrastructure development in the country. And that we see will continue without any issue whatsoever.
So my final question to you is, how does Seychelles support the multidimensional vulnerability index?
Look, this is one thing we've been pushing for ages, because we're impacted directly. This business of high GDP per capita, which really affects Seychelles. Today, getting a loan on the international market is so difficult for Seychelles because we considered high-income country. Basically, if we need to go and borrow in any other financial institutions, we do so at the rate applicable to any rich country. We've said that this is not fair. There's got to be other criteria that's used apart from high GDP per capita. So the multilateral vulnerability, the MVI, I'll say it like that, is vital. Work has been done by the UN. A report has been submitted. Now we look at how this report then is rolled out so that we eventually, finally, reach an agreement with all the partners, especially the financing institutions, that we will have a mechanism that takes into consideration criteria other than GDP per capita.
Maybe one last question. I've already asked my last question. On the COP summit, what do you have to say? How does climate change impact you? It obviously impacts in a major way. You are an island country, a small country. If you can talk about that, what is your stance on that summit? What is expected to be placed at that summit by Seychelles? And also how the conflicts, the Ukraine conflict and the Israel-Hamas conflict, what is the stance of your government and how does it impact you?
I'll take COP first. You've got two questions into one, separate but maybe linked. Look, I think COP, I hope next month in Dubai, we will have a COP coming out with concrete resolutions that everybody, all the partners can apply. Up to now, there's been a lot of talk, in my view, a lot of declarations of intent that have not happened. If they have, then you see, when you say, okay, very good, then you see some conditions appear at the bottom of the page that excludes Seychelles. Climate change is a big issue for us, environment and so on. We feel it, we see it every day. we can see the rise of, sea level rise. We can see the erosion of our coastline. So it is in our interest that the world acts and acts now. We cannot continue to postpone. Now, in terms of protecting ourselves, we need the funds. A small country, we cannot do it on our own. But the international community will have to stop talking about it, make the funds available for us to be able to do that.
Are you not very hopeful from the COP, because you're sounding again not very optimistic? And also, when it comes to funds, it's the Western countries, I would say, that haven't fulfilled their commitments.
Yes, no, you're right to note that I'm not optimistic. I would say I'm not optimistic, not to say I'm pessimistic generally. Why? Because there's been talk before, and we've got nothing to show for it. While everybody's telling you that funding is a problem, it'll take time, we need to source funds and whatever, the conflict in Ukraine happens overnight. You see the millions that are being poured into Ukraine. So you see what I mean. Yeah. So when it concerns their direct interest, they find the funds. But when you talk about protecting vulnerable countries, it's yes. It's something in the past, in a distance, does not touch them directly. We will see. Yeah. You see what I mean? So that is the position we have. With the situation in Ukraine, what was the second part of your question? Situation in Ukraine, as it is the situation in the Middle East now, we would like to see, that this problem be resolved. However way possible. We're happy that in the Middle East, there's a ceasefire now, 4 days, I think it is. We hope that it'll be able to be prolonged. People have to sit down, come back to the negotiating table, and Seychelles calls for, understanding, accepting the two-state solution. There is no other way, because this problem, unless it's addressed in its true context, it's going to carry on, eternally, and we cannot carry on like this.
If I can just sum up your comment on COP, you're basically saying that the West has the fund when it needs for some conflict, in this case the Ukraine conflict, but shies away when it comes to giving money where it's required, especially when it comes to climate change.
You've said it.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION. It was a lovely conversation, and we got to know about a lot of things, including what is Seychelles' view about the various conflicts, and of course, when it comes to Africa's view, also at the reform project, which is something that India also wants. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.